Welcome into the 5 and 6 podcast. This is Tony Altieri, live and direct from New Jersey on the road. But it is Masters Week. It's been a while since we've been back. My co-host Riku Mukherjee, the DDS of DFS, Dr. Mukherjee, will be on a little bit later. He'll be joining me to break down the Masters and everything happening this week at Augusta National. I had planned to be at Augusta this week, but guess what? Work and life get in the way of that, and so I find myself here in New Jersey for a couple of nights and then headed to Dallas after this. But let's not talk about me. Let's talk about the Masters. Big week this week for golf. It is the first major of the year. And so a lot of buzz around the industry. We just finished the national championship. And so the men's and women's brackets are done. People are focused on golf. Tiger Woods is playing. We've got all the live guys playing. And we find ourselves on the cusp of what is another Masters week at Augusta National. So I'm excited to be here to talk this with you guys. I don't want to waste any time talking about anything that has happened prior to this. You know, last week was great for me. Valero hitting what was a long shot winner in Akshay Bhatia at 65-1. It's back-to-back winners for me with Jaeger and Bhatia. I have to shout out my boy Jeffrey Feinberg and the Mayo Media Network crew. I tailed Jeff on both of those picks. I think a lot of people hit Bhatia last week, and so we've got extra money to burn this week at the Masters. So before we get into that, I do want to talk a little bit about the weather because it looks like we could have some pretty significant weather out at Augusta National this week. It looks like Thursday could be pretty rough with some weather happening early in the morning. We're going to get some rain, and it's going to be pretty fucking windy. But it looks like those winds are going to impact both the morning and the afternoon wave. And really what it comes down to is whether or not it's going to affect Friday. It looks like if we're going to have any wave split advantage, and again, I'm using Windfinder. So if you guys have an opportunity, go to windfinder.com, type in Augusta Regional Airport. It's also called Bush Field. You can see the weather and the wind coming in on Thursday, and it could also impact Friday. It looks like the afternoon on Friday could be pretty rough from a weather standpoint. The wind could be gusting 20, 30 miles an hour. So you're going to have some pretty rough conditions for the guys who are in the AM wave and then finishing their second round on Thursday afternoon. So keep that in mind, whether you're building, DFS rounds or you're betting guys live or even pre-tournament. There's going to be, it looks like, a significant wave advantage if you're playing guys who tee off late on Thursday and early on Friday. So just keep that in mind. The field is 89 guys. 13 of these guys are from Live. And this will be the first time that we're seeing the Live guys compete with the guys on the PGA Tour this year. And I mean, it's significant. You'll have last year's winner in Jon Rahm, obviously the biggest defection that Live has made since they added Cam Smith a couple of years ago. And so we're going to see the Live guys. We're going to see Brooks and Rahm and Neiman, arguably the hottest non-PGA player on the planet, playing against the best players on the PGA Tour for the first time this year. And again, it's at Augusta. It's a special place. I mean, this is a huge deal. Tiger's been there all week prepping for this. He got there early playing massive practice rounds. And so there's a lot of buzz and hype around Augusta, I think, for the first time in a long time that isn't related to the negative side of this split between the PGA and Live. It really is about what kind of golf are we going to get, who's going to win, and how is everything going to break down. For me, I think there's a couple different strategies. And when Rick gets on, we'll talk a little bit about each, but there's really three ways to approach this. There's one from a betting perspective, two from a Draftkings DFS underdog perspective, and then the last piece is one and done. One and done has got massively popular over the last couple of years. So whether using an app like Splash Sports or anything like that to do one and done leagues, just make sure that you're tracking what happens, because you'll see massive differences in when we talk about ownership for DraftKings, when we talk about betting favorites, people are locking in for Augusta National, and then of course who people are going to play. A guy like Jon Rahm is going to come up significantly different in every one of those silos. Rahm is probably going to be, if not the highest owned, but the most selected guy from a one and done perspective. But he could get squeezed from a DFS perspective where more people are going to favor Scotty Scheffler and Xander Schauffele. And so you could get reduced ownership levels on Rahm on DraftKings. So that stark contrast between the two different types of what I would call contests that people are entered in or doing, whether it's daily fantasy or one and done. So keep that in mind. Use tools like Fantasy National, Rick Run Good to track all that. All of the metrics that I'll be talking about tonight come from Fantasy National. Shout out to Moose and Pat. Great product. I use it for all my models. One thing that I have done this year is I've started to incorporate what I would call a course fit mixed model into my modeling every single week. And so what that does is it takes into consideration comp courses and then key stats across a bunch of different metrics to be able to see whether or not a guy is a good fit for the course and the conditions that week. And so what I've found the last 2 weeks is it's really honed in and helped me hit winners in Jaeger and Batia. And so I'm looking forward to potentially deploying it this week and see what kind of information it feeds back to us. In terms of the betting board, the odds are kind of like you would expect. Scotty Scheffler, the runaway favorite. He's 4-5 to 1, 4.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. Not that that's the only one that's available, but wherever you're playing, he seems to be the consensus favorite for this event. He should be. I mean, he's the best player on the planet. He should have multiple wins. He has two in back-to-back of the API and the players. He probably should have 3 or 4. And really what it comes down to for Scotty is whether or not he's putting. We say this every single week. And if you look at the 2 events where he did cash it and bring the championship home, he putted and gained strokes. And it seems to be if he's feeling good and gaining strokes on the greens, it's really hard to stop. We talk about like how great Tiger Woods was in his run. When you look at Scotty Scheffler's statistics over this run that he's had over the last year and a half, it's as good or better than the run that Tiger had. And that's pretty amazing to say. We look at Tiger, our generation kind of puts him alone on a pedestal, basically on God status versus everybody else. But statistically speaking, especially when it comes to ball striking, Scotty Scheffler's numbers are better in approach, better off the tee. His around the green game is unbelievable. He's got Spiethian hands. The guy's an artist. But on the greens, he's super pedestrian. And what it comes down to is whether or not Scotty can get hot with the putter. And so this week, it's no big surprise that he comes in as the favorite. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see, I guess, how the betting public. We've been seeing the odds kind of shift around. We've seen guys like Sahith Theegala get steamed down. A guy I really like in Xander Schauffele, a lot of people have pointed to him. I think he may be, if not the highest owned, one of the highest owned guys on the DraftKings slate. He's also going to be a popular pick and one and done for those folks who do not want to deploy Jon Rahm this week because he's playing on Live and I don't know what he's been doing. But I did some research. I went and looked at the Live stats. I pulled as much as I could from their feeds and what is available, which isn't much. And then I basically correlated that to what I believe the statistics should be weighted against the PGA Tour. And that's incorporated in my model this week. So the rankings that you'll see on your screen when we get into it, and I'll jump into it right here. Let's go ahead and post it up. For every one of these guys, you'll see my overall model ranking, the course fit model that I've sort of incorporated this week. And I talked about that I've had a lot of success with identifying winners, and it's really helped me on DraftKings as well too. The overall model rank. So that's just going to be key stats for this course that historically have correlated to success at Augusta National. History, how guys have finished at this course, their placements, what they've done, and of course, form, which to me is the most important thing. We want guys that are playing well as they're coming down the stretch. And so I think the big thing for us this week is we want to hone in on all of those things. But for me, I've been really keen on looking at that fit category, especially when it comes to the debutantes. A lot of people point to the fact that, guys who are playing this for the first time haven't won since Fuzzy Zoeller did it in 1979 or whenever it was. And that is true, but it doesn't mean that it precludes them from winning, right? There are a number of trends that are out there that have proven over the last 25, 30 years to be highly correlated identifying candidates to win at Augusta National. So go find those trends. I'm not a trends guy. Like if you're looking strictly at trends, like, hey, they had to make the cut in the previous year and they've had to do all these other things leading up to it in order to win. Yes, that has been a good identifier for success, especially the winners at Augusta National. But the reality is, like, I just look at the math. Like, I try to take the guy out of it. I try to take everything that I possibly can, strip it down to the math and say, what does the math tell us about these guys coming into this week? And so that's the way that we try to approach it. A good question from Bills fan, and our boy Paxton jumped in to answer that. It is top 50 and ties. So this is slightly different this week. The field is only 89 guys, like I mentioned. And so we get a higher percentage of guys making the cut in this event than we do for others. It's going to play more like a live event or a non-cut event where you're going to get a lot of guys through the cut. So as long as you're not deploying guys like Vijay Singh or Mike Weir or Freddie Couples, like, you're going to have a pretty good chance at getting through. The other thing to think about when it comes to 6-6 and DraftKings is ownership. This is a great week to try and play the ownership game because we are getting more guys through the cut in terms of a percentage basis, that means you can be a little more squirrely on guys that you're selecting. It doesn't mean to go play those guys down in 5, 6Ks, but when you have clear ownership benefits, and we'll talk about that a little bit when Rick jumps on, when you look at a guy and one guy's 30% owned, and then for $200 or $300 on the DraftKings salary slate, one way or the other, that guy's coming in at half or a third of the ownership percentage. That's a massive advantage, because the reality is that those guys probably have just about as made equity as the guy that's coming in as 30% ownership. Obviously, you need scoring if you want to win here. You got to have the winner. You got to have a couple guys in the top 5 if you want to win a GPP or if you want to take home some cash. But first thing first, get 6 of 6 through the cut. You know, our joke here is we get 5 of 6 through. We can guarantee a 5 of 6. This week, that's getting you absolutely nothing. So it's really important to play the ownership game this week to make sure that you are doing everything you can to get 6 of 6 through, but then giving yourself some benefits. So as we go through the slate here, we've got the odds, the DraftKings numbers, and then of course the rankings. No big surprise. I've spent a good amount of time talking about Scotty Scheffler. Really, what it comes down to is whether or not you want to deploy Scotty. On DraftKings, he's probably going to come in north of 20-25% ownership. Him and Xander Schauffele are the two most popular guys, with Hideki Matsuyama rounding out the top 3 in terms of the statistics that we're looking at right now in terms of ownership, and rightfully so. Like, you know, for me, Hideki comes in. If you're looking at the trends, they're all pointing to Hideki. He's playing phenomenal. The irons are fire. The driving is back. And that's the one thing that's kind of been different for him this year versus the last couple of years, where he has, I wouldn't necessarily say struggled, but he hasn't been the Hideki that we've been normally seeing. It's been the driver. This year, that is not the case. From the Genesis all the way through last week, the driver's been fantastic. He is now an elite driver of the golf ball once again. The irons have always been there. The short game, he is a wizard. He's kind of Scotty Scheffler light right now, and so a lot of people love Hideki, rightfully so. But when we look at this slate above 9K, the thing that you have to kind of hone in on is with Scotty is whether or not you're going to deploy him, because the most popular build kind of going into this week is going to be Scotty 1, Xander 2, or Scotty 1, Hideki 2. So if you're starting your lineup Scotty Xander or Scotty Hideki, there's a high opportunity that you're going to end up getting your lineups duped 5,000 or 6,000 times in these massive GPPs. Now, where that's different in the one and done game is most people have deployed Scotty already. They used him at the API or at the players. And so Jon Rahm becomes the most heavily deployed guy from a one and done perspective this week. And so you've really got to figure out who you want to play. Xander provides some opportunity to get some leverage on the field, as does Hideki in one and done. But, you know, there are a ton of options there. As I look at the slate here, the guys above 10K, I'll give you the guys I love. I'm taking Scotty out of the equation. If you want to play Scotty, go play Scotty. I can't fault you for that. If he wins, he wins. If he doesn't, that is where you have a problem. And the reality is, as good as Scotty Scheffler is, he doesn't win every time. Like we saw it happen. Like he had an opportunity to hit a 5-footer and send whatever it was, the Houston into overtime, and he missed it. And so the reality is, as good as Scotty is, and he's always in the mix, if you want to use Scotty, like just go bet Scotty top 5. Like take $500 and put Scotty Scheffler top 5 at like whatever it is, negative 105. Put $500 on it in Vegas and just go pick up your money on Sunday, because the dude is going to be in contention. So I want to take him out of the conversation when it comes to DraftKings. The rest of these guys, I mentioned it earlier, Jon Rahm, to me, like people are talking about Jon Rahm like he's been doing nothing. In terms of his form, he's actually the guy coming in the best form over the last month on LIV when it comes to strokes gained, ball striking, and then, of course, his finishes. Yes, they are lesser fields, and yes, they are only playing 3 rounds, but it's not like Jon Rahm forgot how to win in a 4-round major. Like, come on, this guy won the Masters last year. He's a U.S. Open winner. And again, if he was still on the PGA Tour, we'd have this argument back and forth, Scotty Scheffler or Jon Rahm, best player in the world. So for me, I think the natural ownership pivot and where you should go is going to be to Jon Rahm. I think Rory will be popular, especially because he closed very, very well down the back half of last week. And so a lot of people are talking about him. The narrative around the Grand Slam is going to continue to be there. And so whether or not you want to play Rory, he's not a play for me, because I don't see him factoring into the mix at the end of the day. Could he? Of course. Rory is a generational talent. But right now, for me, when I look at this, I'm going to take a guy like John Rahm and the ownership discount that I'm getting versus a guy like Scotty Scheffler. In terms of numbers, Scheffler and Rory are both coming in above 20% ownership. Rahm's coming in at like half that, well, closer to 12%. And so I like the ownership there. Brooks, Windy C, Neiman, three guys that I'll kind of throw out. I'll circle back to Xander. Those three guys I do like a lot here. The only thing with Brooks, and you're going to hear this over and over again this week, is typically when he plays well in big events, he's rounding into form, right? So he's starting to make things happen. You can see things coming around like he did the last few years coming into these big events. He hasn't had that same trajectory on Live this year, whether you've been following it or not. So he's an easy cross off for me from a DraftKings perspective. I actually like his number. I grabbed him at 22 earlier in the week. The fact that he's below 20 tells me that a lot of people are steaming him. It is a major. That's the way it goes. The guy, Wyndham Clark, is the guy to me where I'm going to have and take all the Wyndham Clark that I possibly can in DraftKings. From an ownership perspective of the guys above 10K, he is by far the lowest in terms of projected ownership. I love the discount that you're getting for him versus the other guys at the top of the board. And the one thing that we know about Windy C is the dude loves money. He just competes and contends in majors and elevated events. He has played the Masters or has not played the Masters before, so he is a debutante. So people are going to say he can't win because of that. But I would tell you this, like I really do expect Wyndham Clark to contend and be a factor down the stretch of this tournament. Dropping down into the 9Ks, I mentioned Neiman earlier. He was everyone's dark horse guy for every major this year after he won twice on Live. Obviously, that was a month or two ago, so some of that steam's kind of gone away. Xander at the top of this range is going to be popular. So, kind of like I did with Scotty, it's not even worth a conversation to me. Whether or not you want a Xander is up to you. My suggestion would be instead of Xander being your second guy into your lineup, make Xander your first guy. So, the way to do that from an ownership construction in order to get some leverage is instead of going Scotty and then Xander, go Xander Neiman, go Xander Hovland, go Xander Matsuyama. Yes, those guys will be owned, but your ownership construction and the natural landing places for where you'll come in below these guys will give you the differences that you need to be able to move up in GPPs. So by going Hideki and Xander, you're going to have a lot more opportunity to fit guys like Zalatoris or Hovland or guys in the 8Ks, because the natural range that's going to get ignored this week is the 8K range, and there's great options there. So from an ownership construction standpoint, it's not that I'm against Xander. I'm against Xander being your second guy into your lineup, just like I'm against Hideki Matsuyama being your second guy into your lineup. If you want Hideki in your lineup, make him your third guy, make him your fourth guy. Like, go a more balanced build, insert him in there, and use him that way because you will naturally be different. Xander is just, like I said, if you want to play him, just don't. My suggestion is don't go Scotty Xander. Yes, I like both their opportunities to contend. Yes, I expect both guys to make runs, but your duped lineup is going to end up happening 4,000 or 5,000 times, and then you're going to have no movement or leverage against the field in terms of ownership. The guys that I do want to talk about, I love Will Zalatoris this week. He's getting steamed up a lot. The big reason why is the ball striking has been phenomenal. It has been back. Yes, he did not play well here, I think his last tournament out. But when you look at his metrics, it's been fantastic since coming back off of injury. I really, really like Zalatoris this week. I do think that he will contend. And people are going to say, well, he basically made the cut and did nothing at Houston. He missed the cut at the Players. But prior to that, right? And again, the two comp courses that I use heavily in my fit modeling is the Genesis and the Farmers. Riv and Torrey, historically, you've seen a lot of crossover success in terms of leaderboards from those tournaments and then at the Masters. Zalatoris, what did he do? He had a 13th place at the Farmers, and he finished second at the Genesis. So again, I think that there is a massive opportunity to deploy a guy like Will Z this week. I love him. And then the other guy I really like is Ludwig. Everybody was all over Ludwig last week. He was the consensus pick. Him and Bhatia were the two most popular guys. And he did not return value because of a poor Sunday. So again, you can take from that what you want. But when I look specifically at the ball striking numbers, and the reason I keep honing back on that is you're going to hear this term: Augusta is a second shot course. What does that mean? It means that approach is the most heavily weighted stat that correlates to success here, more than like 80% of the other courses on the PGA Tour. So guys who are good ball strikers with good approach numbers, they tend to play well. The other thing that tends to kind of hold water is guys who are shitty putters and guys who are not great around the greens. For some reason, maybe it's because it is more difficult to putt here. Maybe it is because it is more difficult to chip here. Those guys are not as exposed as they are in normal weeks. So guys like Hovland and Aberg and Corey Connors, who are traditionally shitty short game players, they end up playing well and showing up here. Hideki is he's a rich man's version of that, because we know Hideki has historically struggled with the putter. Yes, he's good around the greens, but that really is the club that he's had the most problems with throughout his career. And he has always putted very, very well. Obviously, he's won a Masters here at Augusta National. So that's one of those areas where I think you can lean heavily on these ball strikers, especially guys who maybe didn't have great finishes. But when you look at the metrics, using Will Zalatoris as a perfect example of that, like Zalatoris coming in here, he has gained 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks in a row on approach. And again, there's a big gap because he was injured and missed some time. But we're talking about 10 straight tournaments where he has gained on approach. So I love that with Will Z coming into this week. Here's our boy Rick. Rick, dude, what's going on?
What's up?
Oh, dude, I jumped into it. I couldn't hold my water, dude. I had diarrhea in my mouth, and it all started coming out. So
I came home straight on my scrubs and came straight to the podcast room.
Yeah, I know. So I'm glad you jumped on, but we're talking about the 10Ks. I mentioned the guys I really like up here. From a one and done perspective, I love Wyndham Clark to be different. From the DraftKings slate, I love Jon Rahm above 10K. I talked about the ownership squeeze that's going to happen because of people playing Xander and Scotty. So I like Jon Rahm down in the 9Ks, and of course Wyndham Clark down in the 9Ks. I love Hideki. What's not to love? But I also like Zalatoris and Aberg at those prices. Hovland's a question mark to me, and I'm curious what you think about him, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on the guys above 9K in both the 10K and 9K brackets.
Yeah, Scotty is obviously number one in everybody's model. He's Tiger Woods reincarnated for the youngins nowadays, but he's going to garner a lot of ownership. Above 10K, I'm actually kind of feeling Brooks this week. I mean, we already know he has great Masters history. The only thing that's a little scary is that he's playing with Brian Harman on Thursday and Friday, so a little bit of slow play there.
They couldn't throw Cantlay into that group as well.
Could tilt him a little bit, so that's a little scary. The weather is setting up a little bit rainy again, raining, windy, and we already saw Rahm win this in rain and wind last year, so that's a little scary again. But I mean, to be completely honest with you, we haven't done a show in a while, but the best player on LIV all year, hands down, has been at 9,600, Joaquin Niemann, and I think it's his time, man. I think he's going to be donning the green jacket on Sunday this week. He's my pick to win. I like getting different with him, especially in one and done, because everyone's going to be going to Rahm and Brooks or DJ or somebody like that. But not many people are going to pick Niemann, and not only get to use a non-PGA guy, you get to use a LIV guy, but you get to use a guy that's been playing best on LIV this year. So he's my pick to win this week. Already bet him. I'm going to play him heavy on DraftKings. I love Niemann at 9,600. But that's nothing new for you guys that follow us. I've been playing Niemann every week for years now. So love him this week. Love Xander at 99. The guy's just a top 10 machine at majors. He has obviously great course history. I honestly, besides Xander, Niemann, and Hideki, I don't really love anyone else in the 9Ks. I think Zalatoris is fine. He's my boy, but I just think he might be a tad bit overpriced. There's no reason why Hideki shouldn't be 9,200 and Zalatoris be in the high 8s. So I think he's a tad bit overpriced there. Not interested in Hovland. He's just he's been playing terrible. Cantlay's been playing terrible. I'm out on him. Spieth, I would typically like, but he reports came out today that he re-aggravated his wrist injury that he had last week at the Texas Open. So that's a little scary. I know he's going to play, but if he's hurting and we saw him try to play through that wrist injury last year and he did not play good. So a little scared off on Spieth there, but yeah, man, Scotty, Brooks, Neiman, Schauffele, and Hideki for me above 9K.
Yeah, for me with Spieth, it's going to come down to whether he can hit it off the clubhouse. Like if he can do that, like he did last week, and get a free drop, then we'll see what can happen. The thing for me with Spieth is that I don't know what's changed for him. Like he went from this guy that came out on tour and just like stormed everything, and he was unbeatable for a period of about 3 years, and then it just evaporated, and it just has not come back. Like we see flashes of it, but it's a much different version, right? It's like traditionally he'll take the hardest hole on the golf course, and he'll birdie it every single day, and he'll take the easiest holes on the golf course, and he'll double and triple bogey him. Yeah. So the thing for me that I think turns me off to playing Spieth, being a numbers guy, is the fact that he is so volatile. Like I don't know what version of him we're going to get. Could he come out and contend and win? Absolutely. This is the place where he's done that before. This is like his second home. He's had success at all the comp courses. So I get it. I struggle using Spieth because there's so much uncertainty to me for what version of him I'm going to end up getting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just with the volatility and him hitting it off roofs, and then also on top of that, just this nagging wrist injury that he has. I'd much rather just go to Zalatoris at 9,200 or Hideki right below at 9,000. I know Aberg's a popular guy, but debutants here, I mean, they can do okay, but I think I'm just gonna pass on Ludwig this week. I'm going to pass on Wyndham this week just because of the debutant status. I'd rather go to the vets in this range here.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like a lot of people knew about Aberg coming out, right? Like everybody was steaming him coming out of college. Like this kid's going to be unbelievable. And he was. Like he came out of the chute ready to win. He already has a PGA Tour victory. But it feels like he's a victim of his own success a little bit. I mean, again, like he had a poor Sunday here last week at Valero, but I mean, the dude has not missed a cut since the Scottish Open. And his last couple of finishes are 14th, 8th, 25th, 19th, 2nd, 9th. I mean, again, I don't understand the vitriol and the hate for Aberg. Like the dude is an absolute stud. And he is, in my opinion, like course proof. Like you put him at any course and he plays because he hits the ball so straight and he's so good on approach. And really what it comes down to is, whether or not he can get up and down when he misses the occasional green and the putter, man. Like, but that profile, like that Will Z, Cam Young ball striker profile, like I just feel like that plays at Augusta National.
I agree. I think you need a little bit, especially when the weakest part of your game is your putting and your chipping. I think you need a little bit of experience with the bounces and the slopes of the greens and stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, I get everything about him. I love him. I play him every week in DraftKings, but I think this week I'd rather take the experience with a past champion like Hideki. I think I'd rather take the experience with a guy who's gotten in the top 5 with Will Z and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I can't fault it. I mean, if you wanted to, like, if you really want to get different, like, if you have the stones to fade Scheffler and Xander, like, you could get super different and, grab 3 guys in the 9Ks. You could grab, Neiman, Aberg, Matsuyama, or, Will Z, Hideki, and Neiman to start your lineups. And you're instantly going to be different than 90% of the field that's out there. Yes, you're leaving a shitload of, like, win equity on the table, but it's also a way to get like some guys you highlighted that are playing solid golf, and it makes your lineups. It just gives you so much ownership equity. I mean, to me, I like that build. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it because I do think both Scotty and Xander present a ton of win equity this week. But I mean, that's the way to do it. If you want to get different, don't play either one of those guys. You can, or play one of them. Like I said, don't make him the first or second guy in. Like make that guy make Xander the first guy and Hideki the second guy. Don't make Xander the second guy into your lineup. That's the way to change it up.
Yep. All right, let's drop down.
Dropping down into the AKs, this is the area that's going to get ignored. This is where there is going to be no ownership. So if you're going to use a Scotty or a Xander, like go grab one of the guys in this area, because this is where nobody is landing because of that build style on DraftKings. And again, even on one and done, you mentioned it, like DJ is probably going to be pretty popular. He's not going to be as popular as Rom or any of those guys, but that next tier of guys in one and done, like a lot of people are going to lean on DJ because of the win in the course history here. I've heard a ton of steam around Cam Young. Again, I don't get the Cam Young steam if you're going to hate on Aberg, and I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm saying in general, like, dude, Aberg to me is the better version of Cam Young. So if people love Cam Young this week, and I get it, this is his second Masters tournament. We saw Will Z do it in his second version where he showed up and contended. But again, if you're gonna say Cam Young, I'm gonna sell you on Aberg. Morikawa, broken. Homa, broken. Bryson, not his track. Burns, okay. Again, he's from the perspective of the high level of outcomes for him. Like he's all over the board, highly variable. Like he could contend and be in the mix on Sunday. He could miss the cut by 9 strokes. Like Sam Burns is one of the most volatile guys. And then Lowry, who's just been rock solid here. Like every year you could just kind of deploy him.
Yeah.
Who do you like? Where are you going to go?
I think my favorite play here is Tony Finau, 8,600. He's actually been hitting the ball really well this season. I think it's gone a little bit unnoticed. His main weakness this season has been his putter, and he's just been awful at putting. He obviously has good history here, so I think Tony Finau is like you said, like I think everyone in this range is going to be basically low owned because most people are going to be starting Scotty and then trying to grab another guy from the 9Ks, and then when that happens, you're just going to automatically skip the 8K because your remaining salary you're going to want to load up with 7K guys. So I think this area is going to be pretty overlooked. So I think if you're going to play one of these guys, you're just going to be a little different to begin with. But Finau, Lowry, DJ, I don't mind. I like those plays. Cam Smith seems a little broken too. He hasn't been playing that great on Live. He withdrew last week with illness. I'm not really too sure what I feel about Cam Smith. He does have great history. He can come out here and put the lights out and play well. But I think I'm going to take a pass on Cam Smith this week. JT's the intriguing one for me just because, we've already heard about him getting a new caddy and everything like that, and he has great history here. I don't know, man. He's just sometimes he's just not good for some reason. Like he just doesn't know what he's doing. Like I don't know if this new caddy change is going to be good or bad for him, but he's one of those borderline guys that could be in my player pool, could completely pass on him and be okay. Like you said, Morikawa, Homa, they're broken. Bryson, not really that much interest in Bryson. He did play well here last year, but I don't know. Just not much info on what I could say where his game's at because he's been on Live. But Finau, Cam Young, Shane Lowry, DJ. I like those plays in this range. I think everyone else is kind of a pass for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one way you hit it. Like if you want to play Scotty or Xander, like if you're just gonna hitch your wagon to one of those two guys, like make Tony Finau the second guy in your lineup, make Justin Thomas the second guy in your lineup. Like that is absolutely 100% a way to make yourself different because that gives you natural landing spots that are different than the other 3 guys that are going to be natural selections for people who are going, Scotty and Xander 1-2. So I love the Finau call. Lowry's another guy. Like he's probably going to end up being the most heavily owned guy in the 8K range just because he's at the bottom of the 8Ks. And like you mentioned, the history is fantastic. For me, I can't seem to get Lowry right. Like every time the numbers tell me Lowry is the guy to play, I go all in and the dude absolutely shits the bed. And so I've taken.
But he only shits the bed on Sunday though. He plays good Thursday and Saturday.
Yeah, again, like he's coming in good form. He had a 3rd place at the API. He played well at the Players. I think he had a top 20, and he hasn't finished outside the top 25 in the last 4 years here at Augusta National. Yeah. So again, like I get it. For me, he's one of those guys when he's going to be chalky, like I just steer clear of him. And again, it's, buyer beware, player at your own risk. Morikawa is the other guy he's interesting to me. I kind of put a line through him because he's broken. And when I say he's broken, historically, Colin Morikawa has been, I mean, this, Rick, he's like the top 5 approach guy, like every single week in and week out, year over year. And that hasn't been the case this year. Like his approach play has been pretty bad. Like for him to be ranked outside of the top 20 in this field, that tells you something. Yes, it's the strongest field of the year, but it also tells you like we're not getting the same version of Colin Morikawa that we've had the last couple of years, and so that's an easy cross off for me. Max Homa, I said this last year that I was going to bet Max Homa at every single major this year. So I'm going to stick with that, but it's because the number's really good. I can get Max Homa at like 80, 90 to 1 this week, but nothing is pointing to him playing very well. Really, when you dive into what his big problem has been this year, it's been the driver. Like the driver was always a weapon for him. So when he was playing good and winning tournaments the last couple of years, it was really driver putter. Like he's always been an okay, not great approach player. But the driver's been busted, and his history here is not great. It's 2 missed cuts and basically 2 finishes in the 40s. So both those guys are cross offs for me. I don't like Bryson here. I don't like the setup for him. I don't like the fit. Like it just something about this course doesn't work with him. So easy. You mentioned it, Justin Thomas, Sam Burns. Those 2 guys are the intriguing ones for me. I think if I'm going to take a chance on a guy, and I realize Justin Thomas is a much better player, I'm going to take a chance on Sam Burns. And it's just because from a metric standpoint, like when I built out the model, he actually ranks out really, really well in the key stats for this course. And again, that upside is nothing to sneeze at. There's too much volatility in like JT's personal life and the caddy situation and everything else. I can't get on board with him this week.
Okay. You might have sold me on Sam Burns. All he does is putt, man. Like he's such a good putter that like is he gonna be able to putt himself to a green jacket? I don't know.
I don't know if he can win, but I think that he can be in the mix. Like that's the way I feel about him. Like if you would have asked me this question about him like a couple years ago, like if you would have said, "Hey, is Sam Burns going to win a major?" I would have said yes. And now I don't know if he will. Obviously Bermuda's his preferred, surface, and this is bent. But again, dude, you mentioned it, like putting, like the guy's just a freak show on the greens, and that has been the one thing that just continues to be his strength is he can lean on his putter. He has rounds like I can't remember what tournament it is right now. I don't have the data in front of me, but like dude, he had like something ridiculous. It was really similar. He had like I think 6 birdies in a stretch of 9 holes. Like he didn't go Denny mode at the Valero, but like he has the ability to have those rounds where it's just like he goes unconscious. And so I think if I'm gonna between him and JT, because I'm getting a better number at 75, and I just think JT's got too much other shit happening. Like I like Sam Burns a lot.
All right.
I know you got a short window here, so I want to get through the 7Ks. Great names here. Everybody loves Sahith this week. A lot of people, including Mayao, are saying Sahith Theegala is going to win the Masters. Is Sahith Theegala going to win the Masters?
That'd be awesome, man. Back-to-back Brown Boy winners.
Your boy Bhatia won last week, and Theegala, it's like National India Month, dude.
Yeah. I bet him. I'm going to ride the Mayo train on the Theegala call. I might use them in a couple one and dones where I'm really behind this week. I need somebody different to win. So, yeah, man, I love the 7Ks this week, man. There are a lot of plays in this range that I love. Starting with right at the top with Fitz and Harmon and Theegala. No Day for me, no M for me. They're both kind of broken. Hatton, he hates Augusta. I'm not on him, but right below him, love Connors, love Fleetwood, love Reed, love Minwoo, love Henley, love Bhatia, love Siwoo, love Jaeger, love Nick Taylor. Man, this range is just littered with plays that I love. I know it's going to be, I know it's going to be a very, very popular range. Obviously, we talked about it for starting Scotty, but I could see building like 20 lineups just like Scotty, and then just like mix and matching like 5 guys down in this range, just like
Yep.
just making 20 lineups of just of five different guys. Best way you can mix and match down here. I would say overall, I think the value with Connors and Fleetwood at 7,500 is pretty good. I think the salary that 7,500 range is pretty good for the quality golfers those two guys are. After that, below that, I think below 7,500, I would say probably my favorite play is going to be probably Siwoo. I mean, he has good history here. He's been playing really well this year. Hitting the ball wise, he just can't make a putt. So maybe he, I know he played this tournament one time with putting with his 5-wood. So maybe something happens with his putter and he putts with his 5-wood again. I don't know, but he needs to learn how to make some putts. But he's been hitting the ball great this year. As it shows overall in your model, he's 17th in the model. So below 7,500, he's one of the better plays. Siwoo and Russell Henley are probably my favorite plays below 7,500. And then right at 7,500, I love Connors and Fleetwood. And then above that, I like Fitz and Tagala.
Yeah, it was nice to see Fleetwood kind of flash some form last week. It feels like he's kind of been a forgotten man. A lot of missed cuts, a lot of just poor performances over the last couple of weeks, especially in Florida, where he's been so good historically. So I'm glad to see him flash some form. So I'm sure he'll get some ownership this week. He's kind of like Finau, like he starts to round the corner and everybody jumps back in. He's just a super likable. A lot of people like to play him, and especially this week at 7,500, it feels like you're getting him at a discount. What about Fowler? Fowler's got a pretty damn good Augusta National track record. Yes, he has been dog shit the last couple of months.
Get him out of here. He sucks.
Fowler sucks. Go to live. Go be with those guys and play 3 rounds.
I mean, it's obvious. I mean, like look, him and Tom Kim right above him. They are 140 to 1 for a reason. They suck. They get him out.
Yeah, it is interesting because this is probably where you see the largest dichotomy of odds versus DraftKings pricing is in the 7K range. Like you mentioned it, like those guys are 140 to 1, and Tommy Fleetwood, who is $100 more in DraftKings pricing, is 45 to 1. Like that's insanity, right? Like Siwoo Kim, who's 7,100, it has better odds, or I should say worse odds, right? Like his odds are lower than Shane Lowry at 8,000. Like it's kind of crazy how the odds and the DraftKings pricing don't match up down here. They kind of correlate everywhere else, like in the 8Ks, 9Ks, and the 10Ks, even down into the 6Ks when we get there. But the 7Ks, it's all over the board. And so I think what that's representative of is the fact that there's a lot of like mixed trajectory and trends coming in for this. Fitz has been great, but I think a lot of people don't think he can win here. The dude had a 10th place finish last year. And when you talk about trends, right? Like again, go look up Masters trends. I'm not gonna tell people, I'm not gonna dive into it because there's a bunch of them. Fitz a bunch of those Masters trends. Yeah. And for me, he's one of the lower priced guys on DraftKings that I think has a legitimate chance to win at this tournament.
Yep. I do got to bounce really quickly, but let me just tell you guys what plays I like in the 6K range.
Yeah, let's drop down there.
Yeah, I love Taylor Moore this week, 6,400. I think he's might be a little chalky, but I think he's been playing some really good golf recently. I like Adam Schenk at 6,200. I like Denny at 6,200. I think that's a good price. He played really well last week. I like Sergio at 6,800. He's been playing well on Live this year, so I like that. His ball striking and obviously a past champion. And besides that, the only other play that I would like is Thorborn, Thunder Bear. I think he's been playing pretty good this year. Also, his tee to green game, and he played well last week too. So I think those are the 5 guys that I'll be leaning on below 7K.
Yeah, I mean, I like Thorbjorn a lot this week. When he made his debut on the PGA Tour, which wasn't a real debut, but kind of became a regular PGA Tour player, I was all in on him. And, he didn't exactly return value in week 1. But to your point, last week we saw him kind of flash what he can do, and that's the ball striking. Tee to green, the dude gained almost 8 strokes versus the field. That is even with losing a stroke and a half off the tee. Like he's very good around the greens. He's great on approach. We got to make sure that driver's working, because the putting's been okay. I mean, he hasn't been lighting it on fire. He's not, Denny McCarthy out there, but he's been okay.
Yeah.
It really has been the driver that's kind of been killing him. I mean, the dude lost even at Mexico, where it's like one of the easiest places to drive the ball. He lost like 4 strokes versus the field off the tee. So it's not as important at Augusta National, like distance over accuracy, but I can see why Thorbjorn is kind of a popular pick this name. What about EVR, dude? Like EVR was like the talk of the town like a month and a half ago here, and it's like he's a forgotten man. People like, who? The dude in the joggers? That guy sucks. And I'm like, dude, EVR ain't that bad. Like, what happened to the steam on EVR?
He's been all right this year. I could potentially think about playing him. I think I'd rather go to someone like Benny On at 6,700 or Keegan at 6,700. But I'll think about that. I don't know. It's a borderline play. He's similar to Justin Thomas in the 8K range for me. I don't know if I can get there with him, but I do have to bounce though. Thanks for letting me tune in, guys. My pick to win this week is Joaquin Newman or Thigala. One of those 2 wins would be really good for me. Other than that, thanks and good luck this week on the Masters.
Thanks for jumping in, Rick.
Yep.
That is Riku Mukherjee. You can follow him at Riku Mukherjee on Twitter and Instagram. Rick and I hopefully will be reinserting ourselves into the regular weekly podcast market here after the Masters. It's been a crazy time for both of us. We both have day jobs. We both have lives, kids, wives, last time I checked anyways. So I apologize. This hasn't been a regular thing for us. We do love doing this, and I'm glad we could jump back in at the Masters here. But let's get back into this for a second. A couple of the guys that I'll mention down in the 6K range. And again, if you guys have a question about somebody in the 6K range, just type it into the comments. Just say, hey, what about this dude? Who do you like below 6,500? I'll give you my thoughts here. But, I'll mention a couple other names that I think are at least worth mentioning down here for consideration, kind of like I did with EVR. A guy that's going to be popular is going to be Grillo down here. People just like the consistency. He has played here before. It's nothing really to write home about, but it is worth a consideration. The other guy that I'll throw out, and again, I'm an apologist for Gary Woodland, so you have to take all this shit with a grain of salt. But dude, our boy Gamer Gary is starting to round into form. He's now made 2 out of the last 3 cuts over the last 3 months. It feels like he's starting to come back. The ball striking numbers are there. Like the ball striking numbers are back. We saw him get basically a top 20 at Houston. And this is a place where he has had off and on success. Last year, arguably his worst year on tour statistically. He was battling a number of demons. Like, I get it. The guy had a lot of stuff going on in his life. Still a top 15 finish here at Augusta. If you look, driving distance, he's inside the top 10. In approach, he's inside the top 30 in the field. He's better than Colin Morikawa on approach. From the key proximity range, he's inside the top 30. So there's enough there for me for Gary Woodland. Like, I'll take Gary Woodland over Bubba Watson, over Grillo, over a lot of these guys down here. In terms of the last guy that I think you can deploy into lineups, like the last guy in here that I think is playable if you want to put somebody in. Rick mentioned Denny. Like, I think there's a lot of value there, and he's going to be super popular. But you could even go right above him to Molinari. And then, of course, our boy Ryu. Ryu's a stud, dude. He is a real deal golfer. Like, he is Hideki Matsuyama 2.0. He absolutely pounds the ball off the tee. But I love Ryu at 6,300. I think there's a lot of value for him there versus some of the other guys down here in this range. But that's kind of where I think you're done. You cannot play guys like, Christos Lamprick or Jasper Stubbs or any of the old guys. Like, those guys aren't worth playing. So Shank is another guy that I think you can deploy. He has been playing very, very well as of late. I think he finished inside the top 5 this week at Valero very quietly. But the ball striking has been very good. He is also very good around the greens. So that should set up well at Augusta National. So I think Shank is probably the lowest guy now, having evaluated that. But I think Ryu is probably the lowest, like, real guy. Like, that's a dude that can play and can contend. So I love Ryu here as well. You've got some other guys like Schwartzel, who's a live guy. Like, I think that's a hard pass for me. I'll just go somewhere else. I realize like he just makes the cut here every year, but there's not enough in what he's done historically or what he's done on live. Like he's got like a T37 and a T41 on live out of like 50 guys. So there's just not enough for me to get steamed up about that. But guys down here that I like, I mentioned them and I'll go through them real quick again. Like I think EVR is a solid play. Down here, I think that Gary Woodland could be sneaky good. I love Kurt Kitayama. Ryu, I think, is a stud. And then I think Shank, as Rick mentioned, is also deployable down here below 6K. I think that is pretty much it as I'm looking through here. But I guess what I would say is a couple of things. If you haven't already done so, go to the Nickel City Mafia channel, whether you're watching this on Twitter or you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be putting more content out for the Masters this week, and the boys doing daily shows on football and Bills related stuff. That's all there. And if that interests you, like that'll just dump right into your deal. So go and subscribe. We do have a Discord channel that we are going to spin back up. Mike, who runs the channel, will put that in the description of the video so you can join the Discord and get signed up. If you are interested in my model, I put it out. It is free. I am happy to share the spreadsheet and all the numbers behind it. If you want that, reach out to me on Twitter at 506apologist. Find me there, shoot me a direct message, whatever. Send me a message and hit me up and just say, hey, I want the Masters model that you built. I'll be happy to send it to you. In thanks for that, I do not want any money. Just go subscribe to the channel. And again, if you guys, whether it's after this video goes, or I should say should not be live, whether you're watching it after the fact that it's been posted tomorrow or even tomorrow night before the Masters hits, and you have a question, leave a comment. We'll be sure to answer it. Thanks again for sitting through 51 minutes. Thanks again for Rick for jumping on. I know he's extremely busy on Tuesday nights, but we wanted to get this out. Big props to Mike for setting the show up, and for all 82 of you that tuned in tonight and stayed with me throughout the course of the broadcast, thank you so much. Again, follow me at the 506 Apologist on Twitter, or the Xbox, as I guess it's called now. And I wish all of you the best luck. Oh yeah, picks, right? So I posted my bets out there. I am going to add a couple more probably tomorrow once I see the lines fully mature. But if you want my bets, they are on my Twitter feed. You can find it. I've referenced that. It's down in the corner right there. Just go there and you can see who I bet on. In terms of one and done this week, I have to be a little careful with one and done because I am in a massive one and done league. So I will share with you the picks that I'm making in my other leagues for one and done. I will 100% be picking Wyndham Clark. The reason why is most people don't have Scheffler. Most people don't have Rory. Most people are going to use Rahm or Xander. So Wyndham Clark is probably going to be one, and then Hideki is probably going to be the other. And what it's going to come down for me is where I believe ownership is going to end up in the one and done challenges. If I think that Hideki is going to be overowned, I will stay completely away from him. I'll go another direction and grab somebody else. Hovland is interesting to me because so many people have basically crossed him off. So I recognize that it has not been good. The short game has regressed to where it was a couple of years ago. He is one of the worst short game players on the planet on the PGA Tour, but the elite ball striking in the history at Augusta is enough for me to give him another opportunity. So Hovland is a maybe, but right now it looks like it's going to be Windy C and Hideki and one and done for me. This week, who do I think will win? I think Xander's going to win. And that kind of makes my pick stupid because if I think Xander's going to win, I should probably take him. But Xander just doesn't win golf tournaments. But I think that there is a high likelihood that he wins this week. So I will give you my bronze, silver, and gold picks to steal something from Pat's shows. Gold pick is Xander. Silver pick, Fitzpatrick, who I mentioned. I like Fitz a lot this week. And then my bronze pick would be Windy C / Hideki. So there you go. Again, follow me, 506 Apologist. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for sticking around tonight. Have a great evening. Good luck at Augusta. I will be on the road, but reach out to me and I'll be sure to hit you back. Talk to you next time.